Picture this. It's January in the year 897 AD. You are standing in the Grand Basilica of St. John Lateran in Rome. You're attending one of the most high-stakes legal trials in the history of the Catholic Church. The Pope himself, Stephen VI, is pacing the floor. He is screaming at the defendant. He is red in the face, violently pointing fingers and demanding answers. The defendant, however, is invoking his right to remain completely, literally silent, because the man on trial is Pope Formosus, and he has been dead for 7 months. Welcome to the Cadaver Synod, the darkest, weirdest, and most absurd court case in human history. To understand why a sitting pope decided to play dress-up with a decomposing body, we have to talk about 9th century Rome. It was less holy sanctuary and more Game of Thrones. Rome was an absolute mess. Factions of wealthy noble families were constantly warring for control over the papacy, because controlling the pope meant controlling Europe. Popes were being poisoned, imprisoned, and replaced faster than you can say, Amen. Enter Pope Formosus. He took the big chair in 891 AD. Formosus was actually quite popular. He was an ascetic, meaning he lived simply, and he was generally well liked by the public. But politically, he made enemies. Very, very powerful enemies. Specifically, a ruthless faction from the region of Spoleto. Formosus managed to hold them off during his reign, but in 896 AD, he died of a stroke. Or, a stroke in 9th century terms. He was buried with full honors, and the Spoletan faction saw their chance. After a quick game of musical chairs with the papacy, the Spoletans installed their guy, Pope Stephen VI. And Stephen had one primary agenda: completely annihilate the legacy of Pope Formosus. But how do you ruin the life of a guy who is already dead? Stephen's solution was creative and deeply unhinged. He ordered his men to go to St. Peter's Basilica, crack open Formosus's tomb, and drag his 7-month-old rotting corpse out of the dirt. But they didn't just drag him into a courtroom, they dressed the rotting body in the full glittering vestments of the papacy. They propped him up on a throne. And then, because Stephen was a stickler for the law, he decided Formosus needed legal representation. Imagine being an 18-year-old junior deacon, and your boss tells you that your new assignment is to act as the defense attorney for a literal skeleton. If you've ever had a bad day at work, just remember this guy. His job was to hide behind the throne and speak on behalf of the dead pope. The trial began. Stephen VI acted as the prosecutor, and he lost his mind. He paced the aisles, screaming at the corpse. "When you were Bishop of Porto, why did you usurp the universal Roman See in such a spirit of ambition?" Stephen yelled. The entire room of cardinals and bishops sat in stunned, terrified silence. The stench of the decomposing body filled the room. The poor deacon assigned to defend Formosus would occasionally stammer out a defense, trembling, practically whispering, "Because I was evil?" It was a complete kangaroo court, or, well, a cadaver court. Shockingly, the dead man lost the case. Stephen found Formosus guilty on all charges. He declared his papacy null and void. All of his ordinations were canceled. But simply saying "you're guilty" wasn't enough for Stephen. He wanted physical revenge. First, they stripped the papal vestments off the rotting body, replacing them with the rags of a peasant. Then, Stephen ordered that the 3 fingers on Formosus's right hand, the fingers he used to give papal blessings, be violently hacked off. Finally, they dragged the body through the filthy streets of Rome, tied weights to it, and chucked the corpse into the Tiber River. Stephen had won. Formosus was literally washed away. Or so he thought. You see, the people of Rome might have been used to political corruption, but digging up a beloved pope and throwing him in a river was a bridge too far. The Romans were deeply superstitious, and the optics of this were frankly terrible. And then, nature decided to weigh in. Shortly after the trial, a massive earthquake struck Rome, badly damaging the Lateran Basilica, where the trial was held. The public took this as a direct sign of God's wrath. The mob turned on Stephen VI. Within months of the Cadaver Synod, an uprising overthrew him. He was stripped of his papal insignia, thrown into a dark dungeon, and in August of 897, he was strangled to death in his cell. Live by the sword, die by the angry Roman mob. But what about Formosus? Legend has it that a monk found his body tangled in fishing nets on the banks of the Tiber. Miracles were said to happen around the corpse. Eventually, a sane pope took power, recovered Formosus's body, redressed him in his papal robes again, and gave him a proper honorable burial in St. Peter's Basilica. His papacy was officially reinstated, and the church actually passed a law making it strictly illegal to put dead people on trial, because apparently that was a rule they needed to put in writing. History is often written by the victors, but sometimes it's just written by the most unhinged person in the room. The Cadaver Synod remains a bizarre monument to human pettiness and the absolute madness of the medieval world. If you want more deep dives into the darkest, weirdest corners of history, make sure you hit that subscribe button, leave a like, and tell me in the comments, what's the pettiest thing you've ever seen a boss do? I guarantee it wasn't digging up a corpse. Until next time, stay curious, and maybe let the dead rest in peace.